and all of a sudden you're hearing things that absolutely aren't there.
Yeah, it is scary. I don't mean to be rude. I have to take a break for the radio station, so I'm going to put you on hold.
Absolutely.
We'll be back in 2 minutes.
Do you have a paranormal story you want to share on Night Dreams Talk Radio? You could be a guest. Email us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com.
Não perde tempo escolhendo a roupa, porque no fim eu sei que vou tirar. Fala tchau pro seu batom na boca e fala oi pra quem te faz pirar. Se você já tá com a mesma sensação, pode vir, desde que eu dou um vulcão. Tá descontrolada toda essa tara e não para porque a coisa ficou mara. Vou te ganhar no cansaço, no cansaço, no cansaço. Vamos fazer um regaço, um regaço, um regaço. Colarinha dos amassos, amassos, amassos. Vamos fazer um regaço, um regaço, um regaço. Rafa Gomes, digam no beat. Não perde tempo escolhendo a roupa, porque no fim eu sei que vou tirar. Fala tchau pro seu batom na boca e fala oi pra quem te faz pirar. Se você já tá com a mesma sensação, pode vir, desde que eu tô um vulcão. Tá descontrolada toda essa tara.
If you would like to hear Night Dreams Talk Radio on your local radio station, let them know. Tell them to check out www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. And thank you.
You are listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio Network, from our compound to you worldwide, with your host, Gary Anderson.
And that is me. Dan, you still there?
I'm still here.
Okay. That's always the part I was wondering, because what I did after I quit there, years and years later, in fact, maybe it was less than a year ago, I went down to the business because that camera stores are dead and dying everywhere because nobody buys in camera stores much anymore. But now there's a major insurance company in there and their executive office. And I went in there and I talked to the receptionist and I said, I worked in here for like 16 years or 10 years, I should say. And we were picking up all these weird things. Have anything ever happened, paranormal in here? And she looked at me like I was thinking like I was a nut. And then she kind of like nervously said, yeah, this place is haunted. And I go, what do you mean? We hear weird noises here. Nobody will work late in here anymore because weird things happen. It made me feel better. It was not my imagination. But, during that whole time I managed that place, I would hire people. And a lot of the people, because it's in Tacoma, Washington, we would get like servicemen that are still in the service looking for part-time jobs, or we would get, ex-Rangers, or we even had a couple Navy SEALs work for us during that time frame. We kept our main stuff in the basement. And the basement originally, back in the 1880s, 1890s, was a bar. And there was rumors that there's a couple killings in there because, the port of Tacoma's there. And that time, you had all these merchant ships come in, the military, Navy come in and all that stuff. And then I did more research and found out that there was a prostitute killed in one of the rooms upstairs, and her body was cut up in pieces and put in a trunk. So I don't know what was going on there, but I tell you, when I would be there late at night, I had the doors double locked so nobody could come in, only I could go out. And the building next to us was an old Bank of California, which was empty for years, and then on the other side of me, that was vacant for a couple of years. There's nobody in front of us other than the main road downtown Tacoma, and behind there was an alley. And when you start hearing footprints is one thing, or sounds going up the stairs.
Oh, yeah.
That's one thing. But when you hear muffled talking like men and women, then that's when it starts getting scary.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there was one time in that bar that I was at, it's the only time that I've been investigating, and I've been doing this for about 35 years, and I wasn't investigating at the time. I was actually working. And it's the only time I can honestly say I was absolutely terrified. It was about 11:30 at night. I was just closing the bar up. I was the only one there, and so I had the doors locked up and things. And all of a sudden, we had a storm hit, and it was one of the crazy Central Plains storms that it hits at a just ridiculous velocity. And so immediately the power goes out. And as soon as the power went out in the place, it sounded like the bar just came alive. It sounded like it was an absolutely full bar. So I'm standing there in the dark, and you're hearing, glasses clinking and people laughing and talking and footsteps all over the place. And I said, okay, that's it. I'm going to go out in the storm. I'm going to go grab my recording equipment because I had it out in my car. And so I went to the back door, and I unlocked it, and I tried to open it, and the door absolutely would not open. I was throwing my whole weight against the door, and it would, kind of open about a half an inch and then slam back shut again. And that was when I got really scared because I realized, hey, I'm absolutely trapped in this bar. There's no way to go. There's no place to run. I'm stuck here. And the activity just kept spiking the entire time. It lasted about 20 minutes. And by the end, the door into the basement of the building was swinging open and slamming closed, and I was hearing pots and pans banging in the kitchen, and it was really like something out of a horror movie. And then that storm blew through, and it finished up, and everything just stopped instantly.
Oh, wow!
And I was just standing back in the bar again. So it was very, very strange, and yeah, that was scared. There's no place you can go in that situation, so that was really terrifying.
Well, you never know what these entities could do to you. I mean, the majority of the time they're not going to do anything because they're like a recorded, images and sounds. But then there's those other type that are evil. And, there's reports that people get knocked down, scratched, hurt, punched, things like that.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's the thing is, honestly, and that's really why I started the PRI, is because nobody really knows anything about them. I mean, you have witnesses and you have people that do end up getting minimally hurt. Most people that you talk to, it's something like a scratch or something, which, it could very easily be something with an intelligence trying to get your attention. And that's the only way it knows how to do it. I mean, if you push somebody, even if you're trying to get their attention, say you're in a crowded bar and your buddy's standing next to you and you're trying to trying to get his attention, and you tap him and he doesn't notice, so you tap him a little bit harder and he doesn't notice, and eventually you kind of give him a shove, so, to say, hey, look, I'm right here, talk to me. And with an intelligent entity, it could very well be the same thing of, it's just a hard way to judge whether, how much energy do you put into getting someone's attention. And so it could very easily be something like that as well. Humanity has this tendency to go, I don't understand this, therefore it must be evil. And so that's really what we're trying to do with the PRI is take away all of the folklore and all of the fear and all of the, everything that is involved in paranormal activity, and kind of back it down and look at things objectively and say, hey, what is really going on? We're not trying to prove that ghosts exist because we know that something exists. We just don't know exactly what it is. Ultimately, we're trying to deal with factual things that are happening, and we're trying to stay away from trying to shove it into that the pigeonhole of the folklore that's kind of evolved as mankind.
Yeah. Now, James, do you have anything you want to ask him about that? You're into ghost hunting.
Well, I was curious when you were using your equipment, your new scientific equipment. And have you ever used it to coincide any correlation with the weather conditions?
We monitor everything, and it's going to be, eventually I hope to see something. I mean, it would make sense that during a storm, you would end up with more electromagnetic energy. And we have actually seen that, but it's too new. Like I said, this is only we just finished the fourth time that we've run an investigation with this stuff. So it's going to take a lot of time.
I was just going to say another thing that me and Gary have been talking about the last few days is the magnetic field of the Earth is shifting. Now, do you think that's going to spike up the paranormal activity across the world, or have you found anything about that, or what's your opinion on that?
Well, I think it definitely has the potential to it. I mean, and there again, it comes down to, what is paranormal activity, and does it really correlate with electromagnetic energy? Everyone assumes it does, but it's another one of those things that no one really knows, because we have had a lot of activity in places that, the EMF meters aren't doing a thing. They're sitting at 0.0, but you're seeing activity, which is kind of telling me that electromagnetic activity might not be directly correlating with paranormal activity. So what you would possibly see, the way I explained it to some of the team members, is just because you see lightning doesn't mean it's necessarily raining outside right then. So, it could very well be a side effect, or it could be, a preparatory type condition where you might have paranormal activity, but it's not necessarily indicative of it.
Now, I got to ask you a question. How about other groups? How they react when they find out your new process?
We're actually getting really, really overwhelming response from other groups. And that's because we can sit there and go, well, here's the data. We literally have everything logged minute by minute during an investigation. And so it's not, in many cases, people go, well, yeah, this cool thing happened to me. And it's like, well, that's great, and it's a story. Or even, they have a picture or they have a recording, but that's only a single data point. And so the method that we're using allows us to actually have multiple data points to an investigation. And that's the type of thing that, investigators are going to, even if it's not the method that we're using, they're going to have to move to something similar to that to be able to, if science is ever going to give paranormal research a shot, you have to kind of do things the way that science dictates that they're done. And in many cases, that's not happening right now. And so that's really what we're trying to move into doing. So, excuse me, most groups are very, very good, and they're very interested in the stuff that we're doing. And, they talk about, we may start adopting this. I think they're kind of holding back to see. The only problem with doing it is you approach an investigation with a much different mindset. Everything is very, very cold, very fact-driven. It's very much a scientific and, research, scientific investigation, as opposed to, a shovel fell, I'm scared, the hair stood up on my neck, I got to get out of here. So it really takes a lot of that thrill and chill and, roller coaster ride feeling out of an investigation when you're just, blindly logging exactly what's going on.
Interesting. You know what I find, I normally don't interview anybody with ghost hunting groups because I've got burnt several times. I've had groups on that when you start interviewing them, you find out they really haven't done anything. They're more of a social group. Right. What they do is they go and have a couple beers, get together, and then they maybe go to the cemetery, maybe go to an old warehouse. But I had one group that was on my show that, claimed that, hey, we're going to be getting a cable channel. And I go, okay. And I asked, well, how many ghost hunts have you gone? Well, we haven't gone in any yet, but we're going to. All they wanted to do was be a social group. And I find some of these groups, that's what they are. They're social groups. They're not, they're doing it for fun. Or I hate to say it, they do damage when they go to somebody's house. I even ran across some of them that they charge people to go do checking to see if they have poltergeists or whatever in their house. And that just really upsets me.
Oh, it really, really upsets me because it makes it much, much more difficult for, those of us that are really trying to figure this out and really trying to work with it. And, honestly, I'm not going to name any TV show names, but there are TV shows that kind of encourage that type of thing.
Well, I'm glad you said that, Dan. Okay. I actually was going to have one of the stars off of the Travel. I'm not going to say anything more than that. This is going back 8-9 months ago. He was going to come on my show, but at the last moment, I guess, he was advised maybe he shouldn't talk about it. But we talked ahead of time, and what he said, that he just got fed up with it because they would go out, and if they came back with nothing, the network would say, go out and do it again. if they come back with nothing? The network would say, okay, you go out and fake it. You know,
Right.
and that